welcome to Showcase, TRT World's daily arts and culture programme coming to you from Istanbul. We have a very special show for you today since, of course, it is Oscar Nominations Day. La La Land gets the most Oscar nominations this year, but was it enough to sink Titanic? Defending diversity, we ask if the Academy has done enough to erase last year's Oscar So White controversy. And we'll take a look at some of the best animated and foreign films nominated. The countdown has well and truly begun to February 26th, after the Oscars nominations were announced on Tuesday. But the process was slightly different this year. Instead of announcing who won to a room full of entertainment reporters, pre-recorded videos were streamed via the Oscars website. Some say it was so that the actors reading out the awards could avoid any awkward questions from the journalists.
And I'm especially honored to help announce this year's nominees for Best Picture.
Arrival,
Fences,
Hacksaw Ridge,
Hell or High Water,
Hidden Figures,
La La Land,
Lion,
Manchester by the Sea,
Moonlight.
So let's get stuck in. Joining me on the Showcase couch is film critic Melissa Rassis, and in our London studio, Jason Solomon. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Exciting day.
Yeah.
So Melissa, let's start with you. 9 movies nominated. Talk us through.
Yeah. First of all, the predictions are quite right. They were quite right. We didn't get shocked with anything, maybe little things. Since last 2 years, there were 8 nominees, but this year it's 9. And we all love these movies, and we were all talking about this La La Land and Moonlight and all of the stuff.
So talk us through some of the movies. You know, there was 9. There was some obvious ones. There was some less obvious ones. What were the ones, the standout ones for you? Yeah,
La La Land was even before Golden Globe. It was in all of the festivals worldwide. So it was being talked worldwide. We were very excited about that movie. And in Golden Globe, it had it broke some records. With lots of awards, and now it has another record for the nominees. I think since a lot of years there were no nominees. Like La La Land is, of course, our favorite, one of our favorites, and it's a musical and it's very interesting. The director is very young, and in Whiplash we heard about him, and he loves to shoot movies about music. The direction was great, everything was great, so La La Land was not a surprise. Moonlight was also not a surprise because of, again, Golden Globe and all of the festivals globally. Manchester by the Sea, again, another surprise for us, and it's a very touching movie and kind of movie that Academy loves. Arrival, a little bit maybe surprise.
Sci-fi drama, yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah, it's real different because, for example, last year's Oscar didn't see Interstellar, which we loved and which we talked a lot. And this year maybe we were talking between us, maybe it won't see Arrival too. But it was a really great movie, and it was a very interesting sci-fi. And Amy Adams was great in it, so it was a little bit interesting that Amy Adams isn't one of the actresses this year. But these are very, we were expecting them.
And what about, there was one, somebody who did get a nod, Mel Gibson.
Yeah, Mel Gibson was blacklisted by Hollywood, not only in Oscars, but in Hollywood because of some things that he said. Yeah, 10 years.
But his movie is now amongst the 9.
Yeah, Hacksaw Ridge is really a touching movie, and it's a strong movie, and it was also being talked in global countries. It's also about war, and like Mel Gibson's lots of movies, it's about peace. It's about war and peace. So it's a very touching movie. He's not in the director's part, but the film is, of course, it has a chance. So welcome, Mel Gibson.
Okay, that's Best Picture. Now let's see who is nominated for Best Director.
Yeah.
Directing: Arrival, Denis Villeneuve. Hacksaw Ridge, Mel Gibson. La La Land, Damien Chazelle. Manchester by the Sea, Kenneth Lonergan. and Moonlight, Barry Jenkins.
Jason, there's the list. Any surprises?
Well, I think Mel Gibson's return to the top of the Hollywood tree is quite a big surprise, to be honest with you. The fact that he's even working is a surprise to me, to be honest with you again. I'm not a massive fan of Hacksaw Ridge, I have to say, or his direction in it. I find it a bit grueling to go through. I didn't find the performances particularly appealing. I find these films a bit of an ordeal, these Mel Gibson films. They sort of preach about peace, but they show a hell of a lot of war beforehand, so you have to endure the pain before you reach the kind of, you know, the kind of peace at the end of it. But that's a personal taste. I'm pleased to say he hasn't got a snowball's chance in hell of winning the thing, so that's a relief for me, because what we're seeing is younger directors coming through, which is a real relief. You know, Barry Jenkins, a black director nominated there for Moonlight. Damien Chazelle, who's 31. Kind of hate him, really. 31 nominated for Best Director again after the success of Whiplash. A record 14 nominations for Damien Chazelle's vision of this film, La La Land. So for me, I love La La Land and I love Moonlight, and it's great to see the two of them tussling it out at the top, really. I sort of love them both. I would feel sort of awful for one to win, and the Golden Globes are all right because they give the musical to La La Land and the drama to Moonlight. Well, the Academy, the Oscar Academy, have to decide which one they're going to go for. Moonlight's the only one that can really derail La La Land's dance up the red carpet, but I feel it could do it. I feel it's the sort of film that's responding to the new look that we mentioned of diversity and a sort of more outward-looking Academy that Cheryl Boone Isaacs, the Academy President, really changed and reacted to following the lack of diverse nominations over the past 2 years. I think that's the real kind of difference when you look at the spread of nominees this year.
OK, Jason, stay with me. Best Actor category, let's take a look.
The nominees for lead actors are Casey Affleck in Manchester by the Sea, Andrew Garfield in Hacksaw Ridge, Ryan Gosling in La La Land, Viggo Mortensen in Captain Fantastic, Denzel Washington in Fences.
Again, Jason, no real surprises?
Well, Denzel Washington, I think, is always very good and a former Academy Award winner. Of course, I thought his performance wasn't that fantastic in Fences, but it's a very strong performance. He'd done it on the stage beforehand on Broadway, and so he was kind of expert at it, and kind of was very interested in it because he directed that movie as well. So it's got a lot of respect for that movie. Again, I don't think it's an award-winning performance. I think we're looking at a battle between Ryan Gosling and Casey Affleck in Manchester by the Sea. That's probably the front runner, despite the love for La La Land. Casey Affleck plays a janitor from Boston who's frozen and miserable, and he has to go back to his hometown of Manchester by the Sea in order to adopt a nephew that the death of his brother has in his will has left him this young nephew played by Lucas Hedges, who's also nominated in the supporting category, to be Casey Affleck's nephew. And he just doesn't want to do this at all. He doesn't want to do anything that might be remotely fun. Why is Casey Affleck's character Lee so miserable? And that's the sort of what we spend Manchester by the Sea trying to find out. It's a real exploration of grief and how that can really affect you and change your life. I mean, it's not a laugh-a-minute movie, I've got to give you that, but when the smile comes, it's such a relief that there's a kind of massive emotional journey undertaken, even though it's a tiny steps. A little in Manchester by the Sea goes a very long way.
OK, Jason, that's the men. Now to the women, let's take a look. Who got Best Actress?
And the nominees for lead actresses are Isabel Huppert in Elle, Ruth Negga in Loving, Natalie Portman in Jackie, Emma Stone in La La Land, Meryl Streep in Florence Foster Jenkins.
Melissa, I'll turn to you for this. What do you think, Best Actress?
Meryl Streep is it's her 20th nomination.
I think she's broken a record now.
Yes, yeah, but I think there are a lot of other chances, like Natalie Portman or Emma Stone.
Yeah.
Emma Stone will be her first if it's the case, but Natalie Portman had it before. But Jackie is a very strong movie. It's a new normal character that we know. So I think Natalie Portman will get it, but we'll see.
My vote goes to Ruth Negga, of course, being Irish
Yeah.
as well. OK. Jason, can we just quickly talk about Diversity, I think it's ticked lots of boxes this year. What do you reckon?
It has. I think it was very important that they opened up the nominees and made it more diverse. But the point was, you couldn't force them. And you could tick the boxes, but you couldn't force these roles into boxes. Ruth Negga is, thankfully, terrific in the film called Loving, which is a bit of a downbeat movie, but it's a great story, and she's fantastic in it, holding up the flag for Ireland and Ethiopia as well. But you know, if you look at a film like Hidden Figures, which has had a really good box office success in America and is a very lively film, starring Octavia Spencer, and also featuring Mahershala Ali, who was nominated as supporting actor in Moonlight. He's having a great year at the moment. You know, we're really seeing three actresses of colour in the Best Supporting Actress category: Octavia Spencer, Naomi Harris from the UK, who many people know as Moneypenny, and now she's Oscar nominated for Moonlight. So I think we're seeing a real spread, of Viola Davis from Fences as well. And even if you look at the documentary categories, 3 films in the documentary category are about the African American experience. I'm Not Your Negro, The 13th, and another movie about O.J. Simpson. So, you know, it really is the story of the moment. And I think it's because there's enough material around. Now, a film like Moonlight getting 8 nominations, I think a few years ago that film might have disappeared. He wouldn't have gotten notice, and now it's getting so much notice that people, and it deserves it. That's what the key thing is, that it has to be good enough to deserve it. That it's kind of gone all the way to the top. It's only a small little indie movie. Now, it might have a few years ago just been awarded a couple of Critics Circle Awards or a Gotham Awards, but now it's getting the full treatment, and that's because Cheryl Boone Isaac's changed the makeup and the voters of the Academy. So it's a direct result of that, and I think it's very positive. Now, what has to happen is that next year we have to have enough good films with the same content and the same spread of ethnic performers and stories to make this happen all the time and not be an extraordinary event.
Well, thank you both for joining us. That was a great conversation. I would love to continue it. That's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Still to come on Showcase, our Oscar nomination special. We'll see which animated movies were the judges' favourite this year. How one foreign filmmaker worked with a tribe in Australia who'd never seen a television before. And while today is all about the best movies on offer, we'll also look at the worst at the annual Razzies. Well, the films nominated for Best Documentary are topical and timely. They take on issues the world is grappling right now. 3 are about race relations in the US, while another is about refugees.
145 films from around the world were submitted. The list was narrowed down to 15 in December. And here are the 5 nominees for the Best Documentary Oscar.
The 13th Amendment to the Constitution.
Netflix's 13th is named after the 13th Amendment to the US Constitution, which abolished slavery. The documentary uses archival footage and expert commentary to make the case that slavery hasn't disappeared from the US.
Prisons filled, even if nobody was committing a crime.
OJ, Made in America, looks at the highly publicized murder trial of former professional football player O.J. Simpson. It's filtered through the lens of race relations in Los Angeles.
It was disgusting. It was appalling.
I Am Not Your Negro is based on an unfinished book by James Baldwin. The movie's about race and class. It's also a personal account of the lives and assassinations of 3 of Baldwin's friends: Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr.
And now they don't need us anymore.
Life Animated is the story of Owen Suskind. He was unable to speak as a child until he and his family discovered a unique way to communicate through animated Disney films.
I believe how far Owen has come.
For Fire at Sea, filmmaker Gianfranco Rossi spent months on the Italian island of Lampedusa at the height of the refugee crisis. He witnessed the deaths of hundreds of people trying to cross the Mediterranean in leaky, overcrowded boats. Some of those refugees came from Syria. But a nominee in the documentary short category is about the people who have stayed behind in that war-torn country. The White Helmets is about volunteers who risk their lives to rescue civilians from the rubble after bombardments. This year's nominees focus on the consequences of war, hatred, and discrimination, but also look at how the love of family, can change someone's world.
Well, animated movies are some of the most popular in the world. And of the top 20 money-making films last year, 7 were animated. They also attract some great artists. But who got a nod at this year's nominations?
Did you just boot my stroller?
Nicholas Wilde, you are under arrest. Unless you can help me solve a case.
The Academy started to give out Oscars for the Best Animated Feature in 2002. Now it's one of the favourite categories. Zootopia already received the Golden Globe for Best Animated Movie. It was also the 3rd top-grossing movie in the world in 2016. Now it has an Oscar nod too. The movie takes place in a city where all kinds of animals live together in peace. It stars a police officer bunny and a cynical con artist fox who must work together to uncover a conspiracy.
Quit it. You're gonna start a howl.
Maui.
A boat! A boat!
It's one of 2 Disney films nominated. The other is Moana. The musical follows a teenager trying to save her Pacific island. She's joined in the adventure by the Polynesian demigod Maui.
Kinda cute.
But when we grow stronger, the world grows more dangerous.
The production company Laika, which is known for stop-motion animation, got its 4th Oscar nomination with the Kubo and the 2 Strings. It tells the story of a boy named Kubo who must find a magical suit of armour worn by his dead father to defeat a vengeful spirit. It has competition from another stop-motion film, My Life as a Zucchini. The French-Swiss production is about a 9-year-old nicknamed Zucchini. He's befriended by a police officer who goes with him to his new foster home. The final nomination went to a movie with no dialogue. The Red Turtle follows a castaway on a deserted tropical island populated by turtles, crabs and birds. The nominees show that animated movies are entertaining for both kids and adults, and a great script and a visual artistry can make it a masterpiece.
This year, a record 89 countries submitted movies for the Best Foreign Language Oscar. Let's take a look at which ones made the top 5.
Scandinavia came out on top with 2 nominees for Best Foreign Film at the Oscars. Denmark's Land of Mine is set in the wake of the Second World War. It focuses on German prisoners of war who are forced to dig up mines with their bare hands.
Boom!
Sweden's A Man Called Ove is a dramedy about an ill-tempered, isolated retiree. He spends his days harassing his neighbours and visiting his wife's grave. But just as he's given up on life, he develops an unlikely friendship with his new neighbours. 2 Cannes entries are also among the nominees. Iran's The Salesman tells a story of a couple who moves into a new apartment. A short time later, the wife is attacked there, turning the couple's peaceful life upside down. Germany's Toni Erdmann is a 3-hour father-daughter comedy. It's about a practical joker who tries to reconnect with his hard-working daughter by creating an outrageous alter ego.
Erdmann, nice to meet you.
Last but not least is Australia's submission, Tana. It's about a forbidden love affair on a Pacific island. The low-budget movie was shot with an amateur cast chosen from the Yakel tribe, most of whom had never even seen a movie before. There were some surprises in this category, primarily those films that were left out. France's psychosexual thriller Elle and its star Isabelle Huppert have won armloads of honours at festivals and other award shows, but it's not among the nominees. That puts it in good company. The Spanish mystery Julieta is the latest picture from Oscar winner Pedro Almodovar, but it wasn't on the list.
Conoce usted Neruda?
And neither was another favorite, Chile's Neruda, starring Gael Garcia Bernal.
No, señor.
Now that the nominations have been announced, speculation can begin in earnest about who will get their hands on those golden statuettes on February the 26th. But what happens next when it comes to picking the winners? Well, in theory, the hard part is over. Nearly 7,000 members of the Academy have already waded through hundreds of entries and whittled them down to today's nominees. Next, the ballots go out and voting begins. Academy members can vote online or by paper ballot for 1 week. Voting closes 5 days before the Oscars are handed out. For most awards, whoever gets the most votes wins. But voting for Best Picture is more elaborate. Academy members rank the nominees 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Then accountants crunch the numbers and determine the winner. And of course, today's nominations played out on social media. Joining me now is Miranda Atty to tell us what was said. Go ahead, Miranda.
Well, social media loves award season, and they especially love the Oscars. And of course, this year the Oscar nominations were live streamed on Twitter, and the reactions were pretty immediate. The hashtag OscarNoms was trending very highly, kind of immediately, which was great. But there were some concerns from a lot of Twitter fans about the new format. So essentially, this year, instead of a kind of live press conference, the Oscars decided to do things a little bit differently, and they had a kind of very heavily produced, pre-packaged announcement of the Oscars. And whilst the Twitter fans were pretty happy about most of the nominees, a lot of them were slightly unsure about the new format.
Hashtag Oscars snub was also there. What were people saying?
Oscars snub was definitely there. Amy Adams, everyone was asking, where is she? Where's Amy? Who snubbed Amy? She had 2 movies coming out. She had Arrival and Nocturnal Animals, and unfortunately didn't get a nod for either of them. And something that I think you might be slightly unhappy about, Jake Gyllenhaal. You love him.
My very favourite Jake.
Yeah,
oh God, justice
him.
for Jake.
Yeah, that's actually been trending. Justice for Jake. Where's Jake?
I will not pretend that I started it.
People calling him the new Leonardo DiCaprio. So we'll have to see what happens there, whether next year might actually be his year.
Miranda Atty, thank you very much. On the day we look at the best cinema has to offer, we also look at the worst movies and performances of 2016. The nominations are out for the Golden Raspberry Awards, and it's a little shocking how many Oscar winners are also on the list.
Every year, actors and filmmakers hope their names are on one list and not the other. On one side are the nominations for the Oscars. On the other, the Golden Raspberries, or Razzies, which honour the worst Hollywood has to offer.
Yes, 2016 was so overfull of bad movies that we had to expand every category.
From the usual 5 contenders
to 6.
The movie with the distinction of capturing the most Razzie nods this year is the comedy Zoolander 2. It has 9, including Worst Picture, Worst Actor for Ben Stiller, and Worst Supporting Actors for Owen Wilson, Will Ferrell, and Kristen Wiig. Following close on its heels is Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice. It was a box office hit, but a critical flop. The standoff between the two superheroes was the 7th highest grossing movie in the world last year. But that didn't stop it from getting 8 Razzie nominations.
People living in fear.
It's going head-to-head with Zoolander for Worst Picture, Worst Director, and Worst Actor for both Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill.
What'd you say?
The nominations also prove Oscar winners aren't safe from Razzie attention. 7 are nominated this year, including Affleck, Robert De Niro, Julia Roberts, and Jared Leto. The other contenders are Dirty Grandpa, Gods of Egypt, Hillary's America, The Secret History of the Democratic Party, and Independence Day Resurgence. The winners, if you can call them that, will be announced on February the 25th, the day before the Oscars. The public won't just be in suspense about whose names will be called out on awards night. The Razzies have another cliffhanger. Which nominees will dare to attend?
With a gift.
That's it on Showcase TRT World Istanbul. Before we go, we'll leave you with the official trailer released by the Academy ahead of the Oscars next month. Let the countdown begin.
like to believe in fairy tales.
You are free to run into the hellfire of battle without a single weapon to protect yourself.
Now that's a proper introduction.
Yeah, we're all about a good time. Yeah, we're all about a good life. Good energy, come follow me. Always gonna be a good night. Ooh, feel so alive.
This is the dream. It's conflict, it's compromise, it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, we're all about a good time. Yeah, we're all about a good life.
And the Oscar goes to...
Thank you so very much.